Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Stephanie Anderson. I'm the probation foster care specialist here at CPOC. As you may already know, youth tend to thrive in a more nurture family-based setting. And actually, yesterday's documentary was a prime example, Jetro's Journey. And actually, one of the faces might look familiar that was in the Jetro's Journey documentary. So you're in a perfect place if you're looking for family-finding strategies. With continuum care reform and family first, one of the things they really focus on is home-based setting first before actually placing a youth into an STRTP. So with that being said, we thought that what we've heard before in the past, especially at some of the meetings and stuff, is that probation is very hard, challenging to actually place a youth or find a family, a resource parent for probation, based on their background. And as you could see yesterday from the story is a lot of times with youth crossing over, like child welfare and probation, they're typically the same youth. It's just, so they just happen to land in probation, right? So with that being said, we heard a lot of great things about Sacramento County Probation Department, and we thought that it would be great to have them join us to present on the family finding and also support strategies for the families. So with that being said, before we begin, I want to go ahead and share a couple housekeeping items. The first thing is PowerPoints. The handouts are in the back. There was also a brochure that was part of the handout, but that was posted on our website. So once you leave this conference, you can actually obtain all the materials on our website. And then another thing is for questions. If you have any questions, be sure to fill out an index card, wave your hand, I'll grab them and I'll provide it to the presenters and they can answer your questions. And I guess we'll go ahead and begin. I'm happy to introduce Senior Deputy Probation Officer Pamela Lowe from Sacramento County Probation Department, as well as I'm prophesying. No, I'm joking. Deputy Probation Officer Dana Berger. They're going to be presenting today. Go ahead and take it away. Thanks.
Hello, thank you guys so much for coming. We're really excited to see everybody here. We're excited to share our information with you. My name, like she said, is Pamela Lowe. I'm a senior probation officer with Sacramento County Probation Department. I've been with the department for about 19 years, and I've worked in our juvenile hall, I've worked in our court services, and I've spent the last 9 years in placement services. 5 of those years, I was working with extended foster care youth, and for the last 4 years, I've been a resource family liaison, recruiting and supporting resource families.
And I'm Dana Berger, and I've been with Sacramento County Probation since about 2017. I've worked at Juvenile Hall. I'm currently in the Placement Services Unit, and I am the case manager for RFA. I have extensive background with at-risk youth and probation youth, have social work degrees. I think that kind of helps me a little bit too. So we're excited to be here. So we just want to start off, first of all, with just an audience poll, kind of see who's in the room. Are there any educators in the room? Raise your hand if you're an educator. Social workers? Great. Probation officers? Anybody that we've missed? Therapist. Thank you. Okay, great. Anybody else? Well, we really want this to be interactive. We're here to learn from you. Also, we're hoping that you can learn a lot from us. There are some breakouts where we actually have questions and answers after each segment. So if you do have questions, like she said, just fill out the card and then we'll answer those. If it's something that we're covering later in the session, then we might just put that question off a little bit, just so you guys know we're not ignoring the question. It might just have an answer later, okay? So some of the key terms that we are going to be using today. So resource family approval, we've heard a lot, right? RFA, we refer to that quite a bit. Foster parent recruitment, retention, and support. FIPPers, we hear that a lot. We're going to be referencing that. So again, that's federal funding that is being used to promote this, right? The recruitment, retention, and support of our foster care. And then family finding. Pamela's going to go deep into that, and you guys will hear what that looks like and what we use that for. And then our detention facility is called YDF. So I might slip up because we refer to that quite often as just YDF. That's our juvenile hall youth detention facility. So the objectives here today is we're going to talk about network building. What is a network? Why do we need one? Recruiting. How do we do that, right? How do we find resource families? How do we support those families once they're found, right? That's a big deal. Once we find them, we put all the effort into finding them. Now we need to support them. And once we have them, we're gonna hold on to them. We need to retain them as long as we can, right? We wanna use them over and over if possible. And so you're gonna see how we do that. And then we're also gonna talk quite a bit about case management and what that looks like and how that all ties together.
Okay, so why the focus on recruiting resource families? So it aligns with the continuum of care reform, which requires the increased use of home-based care with a decreased use in congregate care. So this is creating a faster path to permanency, resulting in shorter durations in child welfare and juvenile justice systems. Resource families can be used in a couple of different ways. They can be the initial placement, or they can be a step-down placement after a youth has completed their services with a short-term residential therapeutic program. So if a youth has to be removed from their biological family, they can still be in a home-based environment. It also aligns with the Family First Prevention Services Act, again requiring the reduced use of congregate care and the increased use of home-based care. I think we can all agree that children and youth are not meant to be raised in congregate care. Children and youth thrive in home-based environments and homes, period, that are full of people that are committed to them, that are engaged with them, that are committed to their well-being. And so if we teach a youth to build their network and we support them in building a network of loving and supportive people, then we can do that with putting them in a home-based care, partnering that with services to address their specific needs with goals of healing and positive connection. So, building a network. So when I say we're going to build a network, what do I mean? What does a network mean to you? Why do you need a network? Why do I need a network? Why does anybody need a network? Well, the way that I like to explain it is that some people were fortunate enough to be born into a family or a network, if you will, of loving, supported, committed people. And these people take care of this child, they nurture it, they're committed, they're engaged, and those children and those youth thrive as a result of that. Some people are not born into a network or a family like that. And for those people that come into our systems, we need to teach them, A, why they need a network, why everybody needs a network, and how to build a network and how to positively connect to that network. So how our agency does that is we start with family finding. So when does family finding happen? So for us, it happens whenever a youth comes before our juvenile court and for the disposition of a particular case. So that case, the juvenile court would be contacted and asked to write a report with a recommended disposition for that particular case. And if the court officer determines that out-of-home care will be the recommendation, then they're going to contact me and they're going to ask that a family finding be done. Another time that family finding would be done is if this youth has come before the juvenile court, the case has been disposed, and they're participating in an STRTP, and the probation officer determines that returning to their home is not an option for them. So RFA is going, or transitioning to home-based care is going to be either the case plan goal or the concurrent case plan goal. So that probation officer is going to reach out to me, and again, we're going to make sure family finding has been done, and we're going to begin to delve into those family finding results, looking for people to build this youth's network, to build resource families, to find permanent connections, to find mentors. So what does family finding look like? What are the steps specifically? Well, our agency has a contract with Seneca Family of Agencies. So we've purchased a certain number of searches from this agency. So when a family finding is requested, I submit an email. I go on to Seneca Family Finding's website, and they have a template, and I put in the names of the names of the parents. If they're adopted, then I ask for the birth parents as well as the adoptive parents' names. I put in their date of birth, their social security number, and their last known address. The information will come back from Seneca 24 to 48 hours later with first, second, and third degree relatives and associates for each adult's name that I put in. So you get names, addresses, phone numbers, emails, and social media. So you get quite a bit of information. We take that information and we contact those relatives, and we look to see if there are people willing to come forward and be a part of that youth's network, whether it's as a resource family, a permanent connection, or a mentor, and begin to support that youth in building a network from people we have found in their families. So another important component of family finding is involving the youth in the conversation, reaching out to that youth, sitting down, having a conversation. So we explain to the youth what we're doing. Again, why are we building a network? Because you need a network of support. This is what this looks like. Are there any relatives that we failed to contact? Or what about your friends? Are you close to any of your friends' parents? Would they be willing to come forward and be a resource family for you? Coach, teachers, that's a really important place to look. We had a youth that was in our care completing services in a short-term residential therapeutic program, and he did not have a home environment to return to. So his probation officer sat down and had a conversation with him. He was doing really well in the environment he was in. He was succeeding. So he was asked to look around your environment and see what adults you're connected to, and ask them if they'd be willing to come forward and be a resource family for you. So this youth went to school and was talking to one of his teachers, his yearbook teacher actually, and explained to her, hey, can you help me find someone who would be willing to become a resource parent for me? And she said, actually, I would be willing to become a resource parent for you. So his yearbook teacher went through the entire resource family approval process, became a resource parent. He transitioned into her home, and it was a successful placement. He stayed there until he transitioned into extended foster care. That is an excellent example of family finding right there within his community. So biological parents of adopted youth. This is a fabulous story. So we had a youth, again, he was in our care, completing services in a short-term residential therapeutic program. And the nature of his offense prevented him from returning to his home. So I was on the phone with his adoptive father, and I'm asking him, okay, who in your community, who in your family, nobody. Okay, well, he has to transition, we're gonna have to find somebody. It was a brick wall. So in subsequent conversations, I was like, oh, how about the birth mom? What does that look like? Nope. So it took me a little bit of time. I was determined. So eventually I was able to get the birth mom's name, and I did a family finding on her. And the results came back with an address that was 9 years old. So I sent a letter. I was reaching out to her on social media. She responded to the letter that I mailed her. And she was thrilled. She was absolutely thrilled to have the opportunity to reconnect with this child. So what she shared with me was she had had 6 kids removed from her care. And she was able to complete her case plan goal and get the 4 oldest back. The 2 youngest, she was not allowed to have back, and they were adopted out. The youth in our care was one of those 2 children that had been adopted out. So she shared with me that she was gainfully employed, clean and sober, and she owned her home, and she had received the older 4 children, had them back in her care, successfully finished raising them. She was doing great. Of course, this information was vetted. So she was doing great, and she was absolutely thrilled about reconnecting, obviously, with this youth. So we reached out to the youth and we shared this information with him. This is a possibility. Is this something that you're interested in? And he was thrilled. Absolutely, absolutely. So we were able to facilitate that. And one of the ways that we did that was we used our FIPPERS funding, again, the funding that came down to support the continuum of care activities and recruiting and supporting retention. And so we were able to use some of our FIPPERS funding to support this woman in coming down and participating in therapy with this youth therapist and begin to rebuild that relationship with the idea of becoming his resource parent. And so the adoptive father wasn't very happy about it at first, but amazingly, he came around and he actually participated in some of the family therapy with the biological mom, and they were able to, within a therapeutic situation environment, begin to iron out some of those wrinkles that you can imagine would be there. And so the youth, again, he wasn't able actually to transition to her home due to the environment of the home. That's a side story. So anyway, he wasn't able to go and live in her home. However, it was a success because he was reunited with 4 generations of his family. His grandparents, his mom, his 4 adult children, and nieces and nephews. So if that is not a successful family finding, being reunited with positive connections in 4 generations of your family, I don't know what is. Super, super exciting. So again, we're looking for permanent connections in the youth's life, positive connections in a youth's life, and support. We support these individuals with whatever role they're willing to play in the youth network. So community awareness. Family finding isn't always going to work. And so then we're going to have to go into the community to recruit resource families. We had some foundational stuff we had to do. So we created a brand for recognition. We created a website, fosterayouth.net. We created a hashtag, brochures, posters, email address, even a QR code. So this is what some of that looks like. So here's some of our values. This is our brand. This is what we put on everything when we're starting a campaign. It's got some of our values, fosterayouth.net, our QR code, obviously our agency, and then our email address. Here is a shot of fosterayouth.net. And at the top, you'll see our brand in the corner, one of our commercials right there in the middle, our brochure, and then warm, connecting photos. This is our hashtag #FosterYouth. It takes you to our brochure. Again, on the left, some steps to become, qualifications, and then the next one is steps, some questions and answers, our contact information, and again, our brand and some of our values on the right. So this is our poster. So then bringing awareness into the community. So we've done some groundwork. We've created, ways to be contacted, ways to be identified. So we needed to go into the community and raise this awareness that, what our goals and our objectives were and the youth that we're serving. So we met with some of our community-based partners and we shared with them our goals and our objectives and who we're serving and why we're serving them, why we're moving that direction. We have some volunteers that come in under our chaplaincy program in our juvenile hall that meet one-on-one with our youth. They do Bible studies, so they're already in a mentorship role. So we go down and we meet with them in their orientations because it's just a couple of more steps to permanent connection and resource family. So I contacted the Boys and Girls Club as well. There's 11 locations in the Sacramento area, and they agreed to hang our posters and our brochures in their locations. We went by our local churches and took in boxes of chocolates and brochures, and again explained who we're serving, what population we're serving, and what we're looking for support for them in the community so we can facilitate home-based care. We also went by the elementary, middle schools, and high schools, again, taking our box of chocolates and our brochures, contacting them, letting them know what our objectives are. Starbucks community boards, whenever I first meet up with our potential resource parent recruit, I meet with them initially at Starbucks. And so I'll go into the Starbucks and I'll take an extra poster that we have and I'll go up to the manager and I'll tell them who I'm with and what we're doing, and I'll say, can I hang this poster on your community board? So I've always got a positive reaction. Yes, you can, absolutely. Restrooms. So in our office building, because we're always recruiting, right? So in the stalls is our poster and, you know, captive audience, so.
So another way that we've created a way to get into the community is by doing events in the community. So we started out on the left. That was our first booth ever. We went to a high school football game, and we literally asked, can we just set up a booth inside your football? Right as you're coming in, you get your ticket, you see us. It gave us an opportunity to meet the community, to explain what we're doing. We had water with our label. We printed out some labels with our hashtag. We had snack bags of like trail mix, again with labels with our hashtag. We had swag. Some of the swag that you see here was on the table. We weren't quite as advanced in our swag back then. So we were able to just have a great conversation with a lot of people. We were able to hear maybe they were part of the foster system, or they are interested in being foster parents, or whatever that might look like. We were able just to have a conversation with them. From there, we actually went into golf tournaments. We were either given a discounted rate to sponsor a hole. We also are able to just do it for free at some of the golf tournaments because they love what we're doing. And so that's when we kind of stepped up our swag a little bit, and we were able to go out and do something in the community that was really something to just promote. So we have this little prize wheel as people are coming through. There's some real great natural pauses in a golf tournament while they're waiting for other people to clear. And so we're able just to kind of engage with them. They get to spin the wheel. We have gift cards. We get to just explain what we're here for. We added a cooler with ice cold water and some sparkly water so that people would get refreshed. And then we, of course, had snacks and things. But we're able to go out there. We're able to give them things that they're really interested in, and then also, again, have that talk, listen to their stories, let them know what we're doing. So we have all of this. This is kind of our swag stuff. So we have a grocery tote, cross pens, which are these executive type pens, water flasks, which are a lot like hydro flasks, and so they're really good quality. Coffee mugs, ball markers. I don't know if you guys are any golfers out there, but this little piece is a magnetic piece, and it marks the ball. And then it just goes back on there, so it's kind of cool. These are really popular. And then I had just heard about a coin. Eric, what's the coin called? Challenge coins. I had not heard that before, but that's a big thing amongst law enforcement and also like service people, Marines and Army and things. And so they were thinking that's what this was, and so they really were interested in this. We have chocolate bars, like Pamela had mentioned. Everything has our logo on it, so you can see the chocolate bars up here actually say what our goals are, or our hashtags, our values, thank you. Mint lip balms, these are kind of cool. It's actually a duo. One's a lip balm, the other side's a mint, just trying to get something creative out there. Golf towels and divot repairs. One of the things that our admin feel the value of what we're doing. So we were able to put in a lot of things that are quality, really high quality. We didn't want to just give things away for swag and then it go into the donation pile or maybe even to the garbage. So we did spend quite a bit. So as we're doing these golf tournaments, they literally are replacing the towel on their golf bag with ours because it's such a nice quality. So we really like that. So all of our stuff has our logo on it, even the pen has it etched into it so that we can get things out in the community. The best way to do that is by people using it, so we wanted to make sure it was high quality.
So I will preface this with, in 2018, 2019, we had the FIPRS funding come down to support the activities of recruiting, retaining, and supporting resource families. And so what we did was we put our heads together to figure out how we could get the most bang for our buck, how we could get the most longevity for with our funding. And it was use it or lose it. And so what we did was we did quality swag because we could have that on hand to continue to hand out into the community and get our brand out there. And then we also did some campaigns to, again, bring our message to the community. So we did several campaigns in 2019. We contacted an advertising campaign that worked with the regional transit and light rail. And we did an ad on the back of the RT bus. We wrapped 16 buses for a month. And so again, you can see some of our values, our contact information, and the back of the youth's head. But yeah, so this was a campaign that we did with them. We also did light rail. And so this is a shot of the light rail train going through an intersection. The bottom shows the mock-up of the ad on that light rail train. And we wrapped 10 light rail trains. And additionally, on the inside, there were Michelangelo ads, and they call them that because they're on the ceilings. And so you could be inside of the bus or the train and read the ad, or you could be in the community and see it going by or stuck behind it in traffic. And so we also contacted the advertising company or agency that does the electronic billboards around Sacramento County. And so we used 5 billboards for 4 weeks. This ad showed for 8 seconds, every 64 seconds. And so we did it for 4 weeks with 5, and then we did 4 more weeks with a different 5. And so over the course of that campaign, and it ran through May 2019 and then June. And so again, Foster Care Awareness Month. And so all of these campaigns were about the same time, May, June of 2019. And their numbers, what they shared with us was that was approximately this entire campaign with 8 weeks on the electronic billboard, 36 million impressions. That doesn't mean 36 million sets. It means 36 million sets of eyes, but not different sets. So 36 million sets of eyes saw this ad. So we also used some of the funding to wrap the car that we used to go into the community to provide services and support. So as we're out in the community, again, we're continuing to get our brand out there. You can see some of our values. Our fosterayouth.net is on the back panel there. They see us coming, let me tell you. And then we also partnered with KOVR 13 and CW 31, and we had a campaign with them that included commercials. So they did a creative, they created the commercials. This individual is actually one of our first resource families that was recruited. She worked with several of our youth, and she kindly came forward and agreed to be in the commercial. This commercial was shown during the 5 o'clock news hour, again, May, June 2019. It also included email blasts with our ad, with our logo, our brand, and it included banner ads on KOVR 13's website. So we're going to listen to this commercial.
The fear of the kid being on probation would go away if you interacted with them. Because when you interact with them, they're just teenagers. Like they're not like hardened criminals sitting there like plotting their next evil plan, right? They're just kids. Like, you know, they have the same, you know, like on the surface, like we all seem like we're so different, but you go down a layer or two and we're all the same. Like we just want to be accepted, and we want connection, and we want to be valued.
So great message, right? So we had another one as well, and we'll listen to that one.
No one is defined by their worst mistake or the worst thing they've ever done. And so just because, you know, a kid committed a crime or did some drugs or did something stupid and paid for it through the criminal justice system for whatever reason, like I don't think that anyone is defined by the worst thing they've ever done. And I know that with a lot of these kids, they've been dealt like a really rough hand, and in their position, I may have committed the same mistakes.
So we also partnered with IMAX Theaters, and they did a creative, they created a commercial for us, again, getting our message out there, different medium, And so they have movies that run 4 times a day. And so in the pre-show, 4 times a day, this commercial would show.
Make a difference today to our youth in Sacramento. Foster resource families are needed. Learn how to support our community foster youth served by probation at fosterayouth.net.
So this was in 2019, and again, this was paid for with FIPPERS funding, the use it or lose it. We really wanted to get as much longevity out of it as possible, as much exposure as possible. So that is how that stuff was paid for. So then 2021, again, FIPPERS funding is not currently in place at that time. However, we saw an ad to participate in a digital recruiting opportunity. And so this is Daily Solutions. I don't know how many of you guys have heard about them, but they're fabulous. And so we applied to be a part of their pilot program in 2021. And the ad on the left is what they created for us. These are not images of youth with stickers on their face. These are completely generated ads by Daily Solutions. And so the one on the left ran in May of 2021. It ran for 3 weeks. And so let me see if I can read it for you. A smart, kind, and hoop-loving 15-year-old boy is looking for a foster family in the Sacramento area. Have you thought about becoming a foster parent? So I will tell you that in a 3-week period, I received 14 leads from that ad. And those are the best numbers I'd ever had. I was super excited. And so I followed up on every one of those leads. We won't use the word harass, but I followed up repeatedly on each one of those ads. Each one of those leads. And we did have one family go all the way through the approval process, and they're a resource parent today. And so wonderful, super excited. So then that was the end of, so it was just, during that fiscal year. So then the following fiscal year, 21-22, we applied again and we were accepted. And so then in December 21 for 2 weeks, and then January of 22 for 2 weeks, they ran the ad on the right. Kind, responsible 15-year-old needs supportive adults in his life. He loves music, video games, and wants to be a part of a family. Okay, so holy cow, it was Christmas time. And there was a ton of emotional response. Everybody was on social media, apparently. Oh, did I forget to say that? So what they do is they create these ads, and then they put them on social media. It's digital recruitment. And so as the targeted demographic is on their social media sites, they're seeing these ads. And so there was an overwhelming response, so much so that when this ad was running, we had to pause the campaign so I could catch up, so I could reach out to all these people, not harass, but reach out. And then we put it back in the fold, and it was going again. And I received 126 leads from that second ad. Now, mind you, Daily Solutions, there's no fee. It's part of a state program. They have a contract with the state. So there's no cost associated with that. And to get those kinds of numbers was mind-blowing for me, I can tell you that. And so I followed up on each one of those. We currently have, again, there was a lot of emotional responses, so not all those people were actually willing at that time to become a resource parent, but clearly they have a heart about, foster youth, which is great. And so we have 4 families currently going through the approval process, and I am happy to say that a couple of weeks ago, we had one of those families accept placement of one of our youth into their home. And so, again, Daily Solutions, really can't express that enough. Amazing. So our communications team also does weekly social media posts on our Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, again, continuing to get that message into the community that we're needing people from the community to come forward and become resource parents for the youth that we serve. We also currently have a campaign with Sac Cultural Hub. So as we know, the FIPPERS funding isn't currently in place. However, our administration values this work. And so they've been able to write into our agency's budget continued recruitment activities for resource families. So under that funding, we were able to get a couple of more campaigns going. And so we have this ad was generated by Sac Cultural Hub, and it goes out in their weekly e-magazine, and they use it in weekly email blasts. And so those two things together, the magazine and the email blasts, they come in contact. The ad is before about 50,000 people a week. So those are really cool numbers. And then our latest ad, we're super, super excited about it. It's really a big deal for us, is with our local minor league baseball team, the River Cats. So this includes, I'm going to try to remember everything. So it includes email blasts, it includes social media posts. We will be the presenting partner at Kids Night Out at the River Cat with River Cats. And you'll see on the right there that we'll have a banner above the concourse as they're walking in, and then we'll have a half-inning digital takeover where all the electronic outfield boards will go to our brand and our message. And it includes 2 5x5 ads on the concourse lining up with first base and third base. I think that's almost, and a radio spot. So during each broadcast game, we'll get a 30-second radio spot that'll play. Again, our ad.
And our booth.
Oh yes, and we get 3 nights of marketing. So we get to go out and set out our table and interact with the community and get our brand out there, get our swag out there, and continue to share our objectives and our goals. Thank you. Okay. You guys have to have questions, right? Oh, look, there's a stack. You guys have questions? Oh my goodness, okay. How often are you reaching out to leads from Daily Solutions? Well, I keep a list and a log, and I reach out, and they'll say, oh, today's not a good day, but can you call me next Tuesday? And so I just I reach out as often as I can. I usually leave 2 voicemails or 2 emails, and then if they're not getting back to me, I'll wait like a month. And so it's really based on the response that I get from them. But I reach out 2 or 3 times, and then I'll give them a couple of months or something, and then I'll try again. Does that answer the question? Okay. Can you show how successful your family finding efforts have been? Actually, can you share? Sorry. We've been really successful in family finding. We've only had maybe 2 or 3 youth that I can think of off the top of my head that we haven't been successful with finding somebody within their family network to come forward and become a resource parent for that particular youth. Usually we can find an uncle or an aunt or a grandparent. I mean, I think those are usually the people that come forward, but we have had really good luck in Sacramento County with doing that. Hopefully that answers the question. How do you finance your outreach efforts? Yeah, well, like I said, initially it was the FIPPers. Everything was FIPPers, and the FIPPers funding was meant to support those community activities. That's exactly what it was for. And so when the FIPPers funding, since it's no longer in place, like I said, our administration values this work, and it values the home-based care. And so they wrote into our agency's budget these continued activities. So at this point, it's wrote into our agency's budget. Yes?
Are you aware of any additional funding sources available that the departments can reach out to and better access? How would that process?
You know what? I'm not, but I would be happy to get back to you maybe with that.
And one thing I was going to say is that in the May revise, there's some funding for family finding efforts. It's not called FIPPers anymore. It's something dealing with family finding. However, it has to get approved. So it's not approved yet, but it is in the governor's, it's in the May revise. Okay.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yes?
Just a quick question. This is all very wonderful. What kind of budget are you looking at annually that's been dedicated to all of the...
Yeah. I'll be completely transparent with you. I have no idea. I just keep asking. I'm like, can we do this? Can we do this? And they go, okay. And who's going to ask, right? Because you don't want to get to the end of that dollar. So to be honest with you, I have no idea. So again, I just know, we're not as obviously as extravagant. We don't, we're not chasing those things and doing as extravagant as we used to, because we know that the big dollars that were there before aren't currently there. And so we do it on a much smaller scale.
It's incredible.
And,
What you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
and I would say you most definitely want to utilize, we'll probably overwhelm them after this session, but Department of Social Services is contracted with Daily Solutions. So once again, want to reiterate, they've been really successful with, getting a whole bunch of leads. So
Oh, yes.
service, why not take advantage of it?
Oh, and yeah, absolutely amazing. Absolutely. Okay, how many families were gained due to community events? Okay. So the exact numbers. And so, okay, those numbers were very low. In full disclosure, we didn't have a bunch of hands-on leads to follow up on from our community events, even from our billboards or IMAX. And so we really didn't. However, it was another opportunity to get our brand and our message, our objectives and our goals into the community. So when they're going to IMAX or they're going, to the grocery store and someone's carrying one of these, or they're golfing with somebody, it's a repeated exposure. It's a repeated impression as opposed to the first time. So when they're stuck behind them, oh yeah, that's Sac County Probation, they have foster youth, and you know what I mean? And it's getting it deeper into the mind, and making them more and more aware. So not everything we do is going to pan out to be a lead, but it is successful in getting our word and our brand and our message into the community. So some of that, that's the lead. That's what we get from it. Okay. You mentioned number of leads from Daily Solutions. What were your leads in 2009? Okay, yeah, so I think I just answered that there wasn't a ton of response from the ads the campaigns that we had in the community. However, it's just getting our brand and our message into the community several more times. Can you give an example of what you say to your leads? Well, I'm getting to that. So that's a great question. So I'll continue, and I am getting to that.
Can I chime in real quick?
Of course.
You gave a quick example of a youth that actually connected with his teacher, and they
Yes.
offered.
Yes.
I think I heard that the background of this youth, and that youth actually had a serious offense.
Yes.
And it was very challenging to find placement.
Yes.
So once again, those connections are very, very important. And
Yes.
It takes a while. Things are not going to happen overnight with some people, and especially with the teacher. She had a relationship with this child, got to know the child, and then, thank goodness, because then she was like, I'd be willing to take you. It doesn't happen right off the bat.
Absolutely not.
A lot of times connecting with the teacher, so.
Absolutely.
Most definitely taking into consideration those connections is so important.
And along those lines, exactly in that story, and the teacher actually shared why she was willing to come forward and become a resource parent for that youth, was exactly that. Is she had seen him evolve over the school year and become more responsible, more accountable, and she watched him change and watched him grow to the extent that she was then willing to take that extra step. Initially, she wouldn't have been, but she expressed, I saw you growing. I saw how hard you were working. I saw that and so she saw all these positive changes, and that made her willing to come forward and step out and become a resource parent for him. So that's exactly right. Thank you. Are you guys still awake? You need chocolate? We have chocolate. Okay, support. Okay, so this one, I love the support piece. So we have worked so hard to create a brand, to get our brand out there, spend all kinds of money, all kinds of time and energies to get these leads with resource parents, right? So we need to have that support in place, because support is how you retain these homes. We cannot facilitate home-based care without our resource parents. So we have myself, designated officer. I'm the resource family liaison, and I work very hard recruiting and supporting our resource families. So what does that look like? So when I get a lead, I get a phone call, then I reach out to them and I introduce myself and I explain to them, you know, that I'm following up with a lead. You express interest in becoming a resource parent. Tell me about that. And I listen to their whys. I listen to their stories, and I hear a pattern. I hear, oh, my mom was a foster parent, or, you know, I was a foster youth when I was young, and my experience was horrible, and I want to change that for somebody else. I have a resource parent right now going through the process, and she shared that when she was a teenager, her and her brother were put into foster care. And that her brother had already had contact with the juvenile justice system, and so he was required to go into congregate care. She did not have contact with the juvenile justice system, so she was allowed to go into a foster home. And today, her brother that went into congregate care is incarcerated. And she sees a direct correlation. And she says, I feel like if my brother had gone into home-based care with me, then he may not today be incarcerated. And that is her why. That's a really big deal. And so people like that come forward, they share their stories all the time. Why are they involved? I have another couple, the wife was a previous foster youth herself who did not have a positive experience, and she wants to change that for somebody going forward. I have another resource mom who she has a specific, because I discuss with them their whys, and she has a specific population that she works with within our population. And she says, the reason I work with this specific population is because the other resource parents told me nobody wanted this particular population. So therefore, I will work with them. And that's the only people I will take. That's the only placement I will take is the people that meet this criteria. Because I discussed that with them. I discussed, what is your criteria? Because you know what? I need to know their no's and their yeses. Equally, they're both important. What does not work for you? Obviously, all of our youth are on probation. They all have sustained offenses. And so I have to let them know that. And I let them know, okay, I need to know what offenses are not going to work for you at all, so that I know your no's. And then I also need to, and they're like, well, what kind of offenses? Well, it's everything. Everything. Tell me what doesn't work for you, and you know what I mean? And I get to know what are your family dynamics? Do you have little kids in the house? Who lives in a home? And what is your vision on having a youth in your care? What does that look like to you? So that whenever we're putting someone, matching them, we can get as close to their vision as we can, because that's what they're prepared with. You know what I mean? That's what they're thinking. Okay, well this. Okay, well we have little kids, and we just thought somebody a little bit older, but not too much older, not very sophisticated. And so I listen to them, and they share with me what their parameters look like. Again, like I said, one of my foster parents, she does a very specific population, but she's really, really, really good at it. And so I know when that particular population comes across my desk, oh, I know exactly how that's going to work out. I have exactly who to contact. And so that's why I work really hard to find out exactly what they're picturing, what their dynamics are. How is this foster youth going to fit into your dynamic? What is that going to look like? And I also take the opportunity to educate the resource parents at this time, and I impress upon them your resource parents. So if the youth needs a haircut, that's you. If the youth needs new shoes, that's you. You're going to know if the youth is at school that day. You're going to know what their studies look like. You're going to be meeting with the RFA caseload officer. You're going to be making sure they're in court. So I let them know their role is that of a parent. Sometimes people are, we had a case where we had a particular parent who didn't understand that she would be responsible for all those things. So now I put that up front. You are acting in the caregiver parent role. Okay, more questions, guys?
Can I just ask one?
Sure.
Do you do any of this recruitment or these efforts in partnership with child welfare, or is this all done this type of way?
Currently, we're doing it. It's just probation. Currently, yeah. Our RFA recruitment is primarily done by child welfare. Okay, not surprising, probation has not been successful recruiting RFAs because they tend to absorb leaves for younger children, not juvenile justice involved. Who takes your leads through the approval process? Wouldn't it benefit probation to go it alone? Yeah, we do. And so the way it works with our agency is Department of Child and Family and Adult Services approves homes in our county, and then foster family agencies approve homes. And so whenever, I know it sounds probably kind of different, but our agency does not approve the homes. So we go through the work of doing the recruitment, and then I put them in contact. Okay, this is the person, if you want to go through the county, this is the contact when you go to this website and you create this, and I walk them through that, or I encourage them to find, Google FFA and find one of those. But I let them know I'm your liaison, I am your support, even as you're completing the application. And I have actually supported 2 or 3 family recruits with the completing of the application. It took like 3 hours. But if that's what's required to support that person in that way, if that's the help and support that they need, that's what I'm going to do. And so they become resource parents. And so, yes, I do have to not pass them off. I do connect them with an approving agency, but I'm still involved. Does that make sense? Did I answer that? Okay. Roughly how many RFA homes do you support? So do you mean how many do we have right now, or? Yes. Okay, so right now we have about 20. We don't have 20 youth placed, but we do have about 20 homes right now.
You had a hand out there also. I don't know if you still have a question.
Why did you not brand your Daily Solutions ads? Oh, you mean put our brand on the Daily Solutions ads? Is that what that means? Yes. Because it was generated by them, and so I just let them generate it, to be honest with you, and it was very successful. But that's an excellent point. Maybe we could put our brand on that ad going forward. Yeah, good point.
And then you have a question.
Hi.
Are you concerned at all about if you send them over to an FFA that then all of a sudden they'll be introduced to all the little kids, the babies, and they'll forget about all the teens?
Yes. Yes, I am. Absolutely. And so that's where I really try to get my hook in deep in the beginning, and I share with them all of the support we put in place and the lower numbers that we have because we are a probation department, and the wonderful supports that we have in place. You guys are actually going to get to hear about that from Officer Berger here, some of the supports that she does working those RFA caseloads. And so really that, to me, that is hands down, where we shine. And one of our really strong areas is the supports that we put in place. And so, yeah, I am worried. I know they all want babies and cute little kids, but I just have to do the best that I can and share our supports with them. What are some of your retention strategies? I think we'll cover that as we continue going. Okay? Yes.
One last question.
Yes.
How large is the unit? Has your department dedicated? I know you're the lead officer, right? And then probation officer. Are you?
We have one more officer that does it
Part-time.
Part-time, yeah. So it's expanding. It's expanding constantly. And
Dedicated solely to this work, or do you have other responsibilities also?
the two of us, we do this full time. And it takes every minute we have.
And then some.
Exactly, and then some. Yes. Thank you. Good. These are great questions, guys. Oh, yes.
Just to get a picture of your placement population.
Sure.
How many youth do you have in out-of-home placement, and how many are in RFA? You mentioned 4.
So currently I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers on. Does anyone here have the numbers on?
It's about 40, 42 in juvenile.
In juvenile, yeah, in out-of-home care within our placement division, 40-42. And then specifically home-based care.
I have 7 on my caseload. Then there's another officer that has 1. And then we've got another officer that is going to be taking on some that are coming that we already know are coming because they're going to be going through the STRTP, or they're in the court process in detention and we know they're coming out.
So the other 30-ish are in STRTP?
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. possibly transitioning to the RFA, so still coming down. So yeah. So it's growing constantly. Great. Okay.
All right, so now we're going to talk about removing barriers. So this is a big deal. When we're in the event mode, or when Pamela is talking to people that have looked at the lead or the ads and now it's a lead, what do those barriers look like? So for you guys, you know, when we're dispelling assumptions about, oh, I can't be an RFA family because. So this is where we're going to get a little interactive. Pamela's got some chocolate she's going to hand out. So what are some of the assumptions that you guys have heard that people have for not wanting to be RFA families? Fear. Who said that? Because you get a candy bar.
Oh my gosh, you got to raise your hand.
Fear.
I'm going to give you chocolate.
Okay. Fear of maybe the unknown. Fear of what kind of kid they're bringing into their home.
you.
Great.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Yes. Oh, I work full time. I don't have time for
Thank
that.
you.
Right? Good.
They're going to influence by other kids.
Yes, that's a great one, right? What kind of influence is this going to have on our family that we already have?
Cost.
Cost. That's another one, right?
Raise your hand.
There's no way I don't make enough money for that. Anybody else? Yeah.
I don't have what it takes.
Right. They might not even understand. Or maybe they have heard all that goes into that, right? It's a big role that you're filling, and I don't have what it takes. Yes?
I can't take time off work to take them to court or to therapy.
Right. There's a lot of that too, right? Yes?
What about just negative feelings about probation and
Absolutely. Oh, they're all in when they see foster, right? We're all in when we see foster. As soon as they see, oh, probation.
Oh.
Whoa, I don't know about that one, right? Yes. Yes, I don't have enough room or a bed, right? All of these things, right? Diverse family and cultures. We actually, I sat in a breakout room yesterday in here, and one of the things that they talked about was cultures, right? We all come from different cultures. All we need to do is be aware that maybe that child doesn't have the same cultural background that I have, and I need to just make sure that they feel welcome, whether that's cooking a meal that they have ties to. Maybe that's kind of what they grew up on or something. Just be aware. We're not asking that you have to be the same culture. You really don't. Sometimes it's better that you're not. I don't know. But we can just be aware that they have a different cultural background than I do, right? Rent versus own. I don't own a home. There's no way I could be an RFA family. You don't have to. You don't have to own a home, right? There's nothing saying that you have to own a home. An apartment versus a house. It's too small of a space. I don't have enough room. All they need is a bed to sleep on. They need a bedroom. They don't have to have their own. They can share a room with another minor, right? They don't have to have their own. It doesn't have to be a huge home. Young or old. I'm too young or I'm too old. There really isn't. The only age requirement for this is that you have to be over 18. That's it. I had a family whose aunt was young. She was like in her really early 20s, but her nephew needed an RFA home, and she offered to be the RFA parent, and she did a great job. Through the RFA process, she ended up getting married. He went through the RFA process, so now they both had the certificate. They ended up being great family for this young man. Now, was it easy for them? They went from single to married to instant family with a teenager on probation where I'm all up in their business, right? It was not easy for them. But we had wrap services in place. We had people that could help them parent. They would call us and say, I don't know what to do with this, and we would try to walk them through. What would you normally do? This is what a prudent parent would do. We have flyers that we give them. We have handouts that explain what prudent parenting is so that they felt equipped. This particular family was able to go into the guardianship piece of this. We were able to take them through that. We supported them through that. And then with our juvenile courts, he came off of probation and now is under guardianship with his RFA family, which is his aunt and uncle. All socioeconomic backgrounds. We talked about I don't have enough money to support an RFA. You don't have to have a lot of money. What you have to have is enough money to pay your own bills. And then you're going to get a stipend for RFA to support the teenager being in your home. That's all that's required. I have way too much of a criminal background or CPS history. Again, all we're asking is let's have a conversation about that. There's a lot of exemptions for a family to be an RFA family, even with a criminal or CPS history. I have a couple stories. One, a young man who has been living with his aunt almost his entire life. Both of his parents are completely disabled through drug use and choices that they've made. One, the mother, we don't even know exactly where she's at. The father is disabled, and the aunt is actually his caretaker. He's not verbal, so she's caring for the father. She's also caring as an RFA aunt for the minor. Through the RFA placement, they did a DNA test in the home, found out that her brother was actually the biological father of the young man, not the person that he thought. He was 16 at the time he found out. Through that process, I thought, well, all he wanted was a dad. I mean, he really only wanted a dad figure. He didn't have that naturally, but now that he found out that his uncle was actually his biological dad, he literally gravitated to that man. He started calling him dad, and the dad, Uncle Dad is what I was calling him because it got really confusing. The Uncle Dad wanted nothing more than him to be his son. There was a lot of guilt behind not being there for him and seeing what he went through. And through that process, we all got really excited for him. We all were really, really excited that he had a dad that wanted him. He said, I want him to have my last name. I want him to come live with me. I don't care what it takes. Now, granted, this Uncle Dad had another life. He had a wife and 4 kids of his own already, and he wanted to bring this teenage boy in probation into his home. So there were some things that we had to kind of talk about what that would look like. I encouraged him to fill out the RFA application. He wanted to change the name. I said, call the attorney. That's a totally other business. I can't help you with that. But really encouraged him to become the RFA family. He said he would. I will, I will, I will. Over time, kept trying to get him to be the kind of step up. In the meantime, the boy did another charge. He did something, had another charge, was arrested, taken into custody. Uncle Dad's still there. I want to be there, I want to be there. I'm all in. I'm like, great, let's do this, right? Pretty soon, I hear from Aunt, oh, I don't know if he's going to do it. He has a really bad background. I'm like, well, do you know what that looks like? She's like, I don't. I said, okay. So I called him, and I'm a super direct person, so I didn't even beat around the bush. I just said, okay, so I heard you have a background, let's talk about it. And he's like, I do, I have a really extensive history. And I said, explain to him, there are some exemptions for family, don't let that stop you. Okay, I won't, I'm gonna fill out the application, we're gonna proceed. Well, pretty soon, he wouldn't take my phone call, he didn't return text messages, he stopped replying to emails. So while this child is in custody, he's no longer now a viable RFA parent. That threw this child for a loop. Like, right, now he's done all this other damage, this trauma, right? He finally had the dad he wanted, and now he's taken himself out because of his own history, which I don't know what it was, right? There are certain things we're not going to exempt. It might have been that, I don't know. But he took himself out of the equation before we were able to go and explore, right? On a better note, I have another child who, kind of similar situations. He's kind of put himself into this, like removing his family from him. But the grandma was all in. She's always wanted to be a caretaker for him. She was the RFA parent for him. Maybe a little enabling, maybe, you know. So, but she was there. She was always there. She had both criminal and CPS history, extensive history. Now, we're going on 2 years of trying to get her approved as an RFA parent. But Pamela has never given up on her. She's constantly trying to get her through, and it looks like she's going to be approved, even with all of her CPS and criminal history. And now when this child, because he also had another crime that he had additional charges for, he was, we did the QI, and it was actually saying that he needed a higher level of care. So he is going to a he was going to do STRTP, but now it looks like he's going to do an intensive RFA before he could go back to grandma. He just needs that stabilization, that foundation poured a little bit more. Grandma's still there, still a part of his life, but she also is caretaker for her 5-year-old grandson, who is now kind of struggling. Somebody said, how is this going to affect the kids in my home now? This has affected her 5-year-old grandson, and so we need to make sure that the home is stable for that child too. We don't want to do more harm to another child just because we want to bring in an RFA. So we just need to make sure that we're looking at. So we're just asking for conversations through that.
Okay, so we've talked about removing barriers for recruitment. Now we're going to talk about removing barriers for approval. So Back in 2019, again, when we had the FIPRS funding and we were looking at getting longevity for that funding, how could we use that? So again, some of it was our campaigns that we did within the community, and some of it was gift cards. We purchased gift cards that we would be able to have on hand that we could use to support our RFA families when the FIPRS funding was no longer in place. And so grocery gift cards, Target gift cards, you can buy anything in the world at Target.com. And so that's kind of what the gift cards that we put in place. So whenever we have a family, again, like I said, I'm still involved. I connect them with DCFAS, or if they connect themselves with the foster family agency, I'm still involved. I'm still supporting them through the process. And so as they're going through the process and they call and they say, oh, you know, we need bedroom furniture for the youth to come into our home, especially child-specific RFAs. Well, I wasn't planning on this or whatever, and I have an extra room, but I don't have any furniture. Okay, let us support you with that. We can get some furniture for this youth and get that into that bedroom. That's not a problem. Target.com has furniture. Washer and dryer. So again, back when we had the FIPRS funding in place, we had a grandmother that was going through the RFA process for her grandson, and this was a youth that had a really challenging offense. And so we weren't going to be able to place him in very many homes. And so it was a challenge. And so to have this grandmother in place was very important to become his RFA parent. And so she asked, her washer and dryer broke. And she's like, can you guys support me with a washer and dryer? Well, yeah, that's a little bit out of the box, but okay, absolutely we can. And so we used the FIPRS funding and we supported her with a washer and dryer. Food pantry, we had a gentleman that was, again, child specific, and his budgeting was tight. He could pay his own bills, but it was tight. And he was in a small apartment. He was going through the approval process. He needed a food pantry. So we supported him with some Target gift cards to purchase a food pantry. Safe for medications. We hear this one all the time. There's a safe required to store medications in during the approval process to be approved. And so we get quite a few calls from families saying, they say I need a safe. So I jump on the Target.com, use one of our gift cards, send them a safe, removing barriers to approval. Window locks. We had a grandmother being approved. She had a 5-year-old grandson in her home, and then she was going through the approval process for one of our youth in our care, and the grandson was upstairs opening windows. And so she was worried about him falling out. And so she said, can you guys possibly support with window locks? Yes, we can. Absolutely. Again, removing barriers. So the live scan fees, we had a gentleman, actually it's the same gentleman that had such a tight budget. He had to borrow the money to go and get his live scan done. He wanted to know if we could use our FIPRS funding to reimburse him that. Absolutely we can. We're removing barriers to approvals. So yes. So like I said, I try to work really closely and collaborate with Department of Child and Family and Adult Services, the RFA approving social workers, and the FFA, the foster family agency approving social workers, to grease the wheels, if you will, to support the family going through the process if they have any questions, if they run into barriers. Like I said, I've removed barriers for just getting the application completed. Sometimes they get stuck on the application online. You know, I'll kind of go back and forth with my contact and them, and what exactly is the barrier and how can I help, and through all of it, through the entire approval process and the placement. But I work hard, I collaborate with the social workers through both agencies to support that approval process. So, removing barriers to retention. Obviously, we've worked this hard, we've come this far. We want to retain these families. We want to retain them and help them to feel supported. So, with some of the gift cards that we purchased with, again, our FIPRS funding that was in place at that time, we have Target, we have grocery gift cards, so we utilize those to remove barriers and to promote retention of our families. So grocery gift cards, when we place a youth into a home, then we support up front with grocery gift cards. We are putting a teenager in someone's house. Here is some grocery money. Go stock your cupboards, right? Not because they need it, but because it's helpful and it's supportive. Clothing, hygiene, school supplies. So some of our youth are transitioning directly out of our juvenile hall. We don't know what clothes they're going to have. So they're probably going to need clothes. They're definitely going to need hygiene. They're going to be enrolling in school, so they definitely need school supplies. So again, that's upfront support. The family does not have to come out of pocket with that. We can support them at that at placement. Personalized room decor, that's kind of a biggie for me personally. I think when you walk into a bedroom that you've participated in decorating, you've picked the curtains, you've picked the rug on the wall, you picked the bedding, maybe you picked the room, you know, the wall decor. That to me is the difference between being reminded you're staying in somebody else's room, you're borrowing a room, or no, this is my space. I created this space. And so we use some of our Target gift cards to support the youth and the resource parent in going out and getting room decor for that youth to add to that room things that are personally valuable and comforting to him or her. Sporting equipment. So we've had we supported several of our youth in our care with sporting goods. We had one youth that came forward and said, hey, my foster dad plays golf and I want to play golf with him. Okay. Well, let's get you some golf clubs. So we supported him with golf clubs. He was also he wanted to be an underwater welder. And so he was taking scuba diving lessons. And so wanted to know if we could support with that. Well, when we had our FIPRS funding in place, yes, we can. So we were supporting with that. Let's see. Basketball hoop, yes. So he wanted something to do outside with his mentor when his mentor showed up. Well, I can shoot hoops. Can you guys support me with a basketball hoop? Yes, we can. Supported with a basketball hoop. So the education, travel reimbursement. So when we place a youth into an RFA home and they have a school of origin and they're going to continue to go to that school of origin, they've chosen that. And so we let the resource parent know that right out of the gate, okay, this is where the school of origin is, and this is what that's going to look like. And we submit the education travel reimbursement form to provide that extra funding for that resource parent to get that youth back and forth to school if it meets the criteria. I believe it has to be a certain number of miles between the RFA home and the school. But if the home reaches that requirement, that we submit that form and it puts extra funding in place to support the RFA parent in doing that travel and then again, you know, the activities that will take place at that school for that youth. Back to school clothes. So this is another component that our administration has allowed and supported us in, is once a year we contact the youth and we ask them, where would you like to go? What retailer would you like to go to purchase your back to school clothes? And we've heard everything. We've heard Nordstrom, and we've heard all the way to Old Navy, everything. And so they are allowed to provide the name of the retailer. We take money, we purchase gift cards from that particular retailer. We deliver them to the resource parent, and we say, okay, please bring us the receipts. So they have to provide receipts on all gift cards that we give out. They are required to return the receipts just so that we can verify where that funding is going. And so, yeah, but the youth shows up at the first day of school and he's got clothes on that he's picked out. He feels good. He feels ready to go, hopefully. And then bike, helmet, lock. If we can support a youth with a bike, a helmet, and a lock, and they can practice some autonomy and getting themselves to school, fabulous. Promoting independence. Getting themselves to an after-school job, again, promoting that autonomy. Holiday meals, gift cards. So this actually started out of need. We had a particular resource family who didn't have the space, if you will, in their home to prepare a holiday meal. And so we were trying to figure out how do we support them in that. And, and at the same time, we had another resource parent who didn't have the knowledge of how to create a holiday meal. And so we came up with, well, okay, we will go to Rayleigh, Safeway, Bel Air, those prepared holiday meals, and we went to those stores, came up with what their options were. I email it to our RFA families that have a placement of our youth in their home, and I say, these are your options, and let me know which one you want. So at Thanksgiving and Christmas, we've been able to support with that. And then again, in addition to the meal at Christmas time, we are able to use some of our Target gift cards to support our RFA families with to promote gift exchange. So we're doing everything we can to remove barriers to building positive, warm memories at holiday time, trying to remove any barriers that are in place to enjoying a holiday meal, promoting gift exchange. And feedback that I had from one of our RFA parents was she has two children, and then she has our youth in her home, and she said all of the youth went out and they were so excited. It was a bonding experience, and they purchased gifts for the adults, for the parents. And she said it was exactly what you would picture. They were laughing and joking, and then they came home and it was a secret, and they wrapped the gifts, and it was exactly what you would want. It was warm, positive memories being built. And so those relationships are going to outlast our involvement, and that's exactly what we want. So grocery gift cards. So we had a family that was an RFA family, and they came to us for additional grocery card support. And so we were kind of having a conversation, what's going on? Are there any additional challenges? And they said, well, yeah, actually the wife has run into some medical challenges and she's not able to work anymore. And so our budget's tighter. And so that creates stress and tension. Of course it does. And so we were able to provide some additional support with the grocery gift cards. Again, hopefully relieving some of the tension within the home, retaining that placement. And as Dana shared, that placement actually led to that youth completing the terms and conditions of probation, being terminated from probation, and that couple became his legal guardians. So an excellent use of resources supporting and retaining that placement for that youth, which led to those wonderful outcomes. And then supporting self-care. So this is a little out of the box, I'll warn you. So we had a grandmother who had placement of, had her grandson in her home. She's the RFA parent, and she was under-resourced in lots and lots of different ways. And this youth was extremely challenging. And so we provided as much, obviously WRAP was in place, and there was a bunch of support in place, but this grandmother was really she was working hard, and she was just exhausted. And so at one of our meetings, we were like, hey, are you practicing self-care? What does that look like to you? And she's like, no, I have no time for that, and even if I had time, I don't have any money for that. Okay, well, let's talk about what that looks like. So during the course of the conversation, she shared, well, her sister has a terminal disease, and she would really like to spend some time with her sister. And so additional conversation, we decided as a team that we were going to support her and her sister with getting massages, getting their nails done, followed by a meal. And so we did use our FIPRS funding. This was back when we had our FIPRS funding. I went and purchased those gift cards, and I gave them to her. Her and her sister went, had a wonderful time. That was how we could support her in her individual, unique need and promote her having self-care, and then come back and ready to re-engage and address this really challenging work that she was doing to support her grandson. So a little bit out of the box, but I think well worth it. Okay, now what questions do you have? I know you have some questions. Thank you. Okay. Have any of your matched child-specific families gone on to accept an unmatched placement? Does that mean a child-specific family moved on and accepted a youth that wasn't child-specific? I don't think so, but I will share with you that the family that became legal guardian over the particular youth that was in our care says that they're open to becoming a resource parent going forward in the future. So that would be a yes once we get a youth in with them. But that so far is our only child-specific resource family that has done that at this point.
The Leslie on the commercial actually took one other child.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's a yes. Yes. How quickly are you able to place with an approved unmatched family? If there's a lengthy wait, how do you keep the family interested? Okay, so what this looks like is when we have a youth that is in imminent need of going into a home-based care, and we have a family that has gone through, the vetting, they're not through the approval process yet, but we've been in their background and we've discussed the case with them, and we've been as transparent as we can with them, and they're a yes, and they're like, okay, they have to complete the application and complete an orientation, and then they are eligible for emergency RFA placement at that time. And so that's how we would do that. So, we don't have to drag out that placement. They need to meet those 2 criteria, and then they are eligible for emergency placement, and then funding can even start under the emergency RFA placement funding. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, the child that I talked about, the grandma being in the process for 2 years, the child was actually with him with her most of those 2 years until he got the new charge, though.
This question is, if your county doesn't do the RFA approvals, how or what are you doing to help that grandma to get approved with the CPS and criminal background? So basically, the RFA approving social worker, that was actually being approved through the Department of Child and Family and Adult Services. And so they're doing the background. I don't have any piece in that, but we're supporting her with the grocery gift cards at the placement. We're supporting her in all the other ways while this is in the process, while it's being approved. She's getting her emergency RFA stipend. She's getting some gift cards to support her through the process. We just have our regular RFA caseload support in place with her. The RAP team, all of that is in place and supporting that placement until she gets through. I can't specifically support her in the CPS, removing any of those barriers, or even the criminal background. I can't support in removing any of those barriers, but I can support her in the RFA placement, if you will, until she makes it through the approval process. Just continuing that engagement and working and supporting. Does that make sense? Okay.
And then there's another question. You mentioned intensive RFA. Can you explain this a bit more? So we do have a couple. One that's it's in like more intense care RFA. So they have some additional classes that they have to get done to be able to support the needs of a child that just needs a lot more support than just a typical RFA. So there are some additional things that they need to do. Yeah.
Have you been able to recruit the ISFC?
Right, that's what you're talking about.
Service, billable, Medi-Cal billable service?
You know what, we don't have, let's see. Usually, I think the ones that we have, the ISFC homes that we have, go through typically an FFA. Mm-hmm. We've worked with 2 homes that are approved under FFAs. We do not have any, I don't believe, any county homes that are approved as ISFC homes. Yeah. Yes?
So in the situation with the grandmother who you feel they have non-exemptable offenses, so you're saying...
They have exemptable, did you say non-exemptable?
You said non-exemptable?
No, we weren't involved in exemptable or non-exemptable. We have to leave that up to the approving social worker. So we're assuming if they're approving her, they're exemptable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You said there was something that did not qualify.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Nope, yeah. We can't remove those barriers. That's up to the RFA approving social worker. Absolutely, yeah. Yes?
And do you have respite options for resource management?
Oh.
Yes, we're going to talk about that.
Yes.
Great question.
Yes, we do. Yes. So yes, Dana will get to that. Yeah.
So I have 2 things. So one is she's a family member, so she can have there's something different for the families than their exemptions, correct?
Right.
If there was someone that was not a family member, they may not be able to exempt them.
Right, that's correct.
So in her case, you don't know
right.
but it's potentially that she can be exempted because she's a family member. And then the other thing is, you guys have a contract with your child welfare services to do your RFA process?
Yes, I'm assuming. Sort of, yeah. Yeah.
So you guys don't do the full process?
We don't do any of the RFA approval process. We do not. As an agency, we don't. Oh, yes. Very actively. Yes. Exactly. Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
All right, so hopefully we still have your attention. There's a lot of information. So building relationships, right? So we've recruited, now we've supported, and we want to retain. So we're building relationships. So for us in Sacramento, this all starts while the youth is still in custody or at the STRTP. So once we find that there's an actual match for our RFA to a child, then we're going to start to encourage that relationship building before they're ever in their home. So what that looks like is if they're in custody, we're going to ask that they go and visit them at the visiting center. See if there's a connection. See if this child likes the RFA family, right? Because we want them to stay. So we need there to be a connection of some sort. So we're encouraging that while they're in custody. While they are in custody, we're encouraging letters back and forth. We're encouraging phone calls. We could even facilitate Zoom visits if that's what it's going to take, so that they can just kind of get to know each other prior to that child ever stepping foot in the home. The other thing is, if they're in an STRTP and the child's earned a home pass, we're going to see if that home pass can be used to go and visit the RFA family. Part of the thing that I have realized with the kids on my caseload, the anxiety that comes with the unknown, the anxiety of the thought of going to live with strangers, right? And so I'm trying to take that all away. As much as I can, I'm going to try to dispel all that anxiety. They're going to get to know the RFA family prior to ever going to live with them. Part of that's going into their home. They can see what that environment looks like. They can see if there's other people in the family. Do they get along? What are the house rules before I even get there? There's so many things, what ifs, that if I could take any of those and put those to rest for them, it's just going to be that much more of a successful placement. The other thing is I'm going to get those RAP referral teams put in place way before they come out. If at all possible, I'm going to make sure that the RAP team, we might even have a CFT meeting before they leave the STRTP or our youth detention facility, so that everybody already knows what to expect, where we're going with this, what's the end goal. Is it family reunification or is it not? Is this a long-term placement with RFA? And then we're supporting and encouraging positive relationships within the RFA family and the youth. This is really important for us. Part of this, I heard it so much, the video yesterday, a breakout session yesterday, this morning, right? These kids, the crime doesn't define them, right? And there's all these assumptions about probation kids, that they're all bad. A lot of the kids that some of them are bad, I'm not getting, I'm very transparent, but there's a lot of kids that aren't bad. They've just made bad choices, and they're just kids, and they want to be a part of something. They want to be loved. They want to be included, right? They want a family. And so if we can get that relationship started before, then they're going to go into this with a whole different idea of what this looks like. And not just the youth, but the family also. So one of the ways that we do this when the placement happens, the kid goes into the RFA family, right? We are building relationships within that family. And what Pamela had mentioned earlier is we want to build memories. Part of being a family is you think about the history, right? What happened at Christmas 5 years ago when grandma did whatever, right? There's all these memories that happen in families, and we want to encourage that. So how we do that is we have a meal and an activity for the entire family every quarter. So we've got options for them. They can pick any of our gift cards to the places on the screen, right? Chick-fil-A, Red Robin, McDonald's, so they get a meal. And then they also have a family activity that we do. So indoor kart racing, that K1 Speed, it's super fun, super popular. Movies, Topgolf. Every quarter, they get to pick an activity and a meal that goes with that activity, and they get to do that as a family. So we're not just paying for the child and the RFA. I have got one family that has 7 people in the family. We pay for the entire thing with gift cards so that they can go as an entire family. They could start bonding. There's other kids in the home. They can all start to laugh and have fun. And they really do become part of that family. And we try to support that as much as we can. Then we're going to build relationships and natural networks with other RFA families, right? We want them to have networks. Again, this is way after probation is in these kids' lives. We need them to have that network going forward. So what this looks like is one of the things that's coming out of our River Cats campaign is that we have a suite. We have food and we have drinks, and we are inviting all of our RFA families to that. The kids, the families, everybody. Now you had asked about respite. we do have respite RFAs. Those are those that aren't really all in for 100% like 24/7 care of a kid, but they want to help. So what we have is they've gone through the process. They actually will take them in for a weekend. We've had some take them in for a week if the RFA family needs to leave for work or something like that, or maybe they just need a break. Because if I'm going to be real, my caseload, they're a handful. They're out of their parents' care for a reason. They've been taken into custody and we can't figure out, there's not another place for them. They are a handful. And so when we're asking RFA families to step in and care for them, sometimes you just need a break. And sometimes they don't have that natural network of people to help aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa. And so we've created that for them with the respite families. So we actually will bring them together. We're hoping that through that process, the respite family then gets to know the kids get to know the respite family, and again, that whole unknown thing is taken away. Now our RFA families, I've heard, are super cool. Now Pamela's met them, I haven't met them, the kids have met them. We set them up to go out. If there's some need for respite, they'll go out for coffee, or we'll get them gift cards so they can have a meal together so that they can get to know each other before going and spending the weekend with them. But I haven't had any kids say, oh, I don't want to go with them. They all love them, and it's kind of like the cool aunt, uncle, they get to go and spend some time. And so that's something that we support. So we want to make sure that those natural relationships are being built. So again, when we're gone, they've already got things established. So Pamela and I have big vision. I'm not going to lie. We have big vision. We had big vision when we came to this, and we're always thinking of different ways that we can put our brand out there. We're looking for a designated site. We want eventually there to be a designated site where families can come in and do their mobile live scans. They can come in and take CPR classes. So we're taking those barriers away. There's some place they can come that they can actually come in for an activity or some sort of gathering where it's comfortable. It's not a conference room, but we're kind of coming together and we're going to have an event. We've even talked about having all the families come into something like this where we have a guest speaker that can talk about parenting and what that looks like, and that then the kids get to know each other, the families get to know each other. We would like an area where there's youth, like a little hangout, a little place where they can maybe do gaming systems. If I have a CFT meeting and they've got little siblings that can't come into the meeting, there's an area that the parents can still see them, but they're out there playing games or doing something that's keeping them active, so it's not a barrier to them coming. And then, of course, computer access. Not everybody has Wi-Fi in their home, right? So we want some place that they can come in, have computer access, have somebody there to help them through the application process. Take foster parent college, right? We're big promoters of that. It's not easy sometimes just bringing a child into your home, a teenager at that, and then you have somebody who has a lot of trauma and all of the things that come with that kid, and they're looking for some help. And then, of course, some place where we can have RAP and CFT meetings. Again, just some place that we can come together that's centrally located. Our vision is our kids will come out of RFA, they'll get out of probation, they'll have a great life, and they're going to want to give back. And maybe they can come back and mentor the kids that are coming behind them, right? So that they can see that I'm going to be okay. Right? This isn't the end of it. This isn't the end of my story. I still have a lot of more life to give. And that's one of the things I'm always preaching to them. This does not define you. It's a chapter of your life and it's a chapter of your story, but your story has a long ways to go and you can rewrite that, how it ends. And so we want that on-site mentor, and then always food available because that's just fun and everybody loves food and drinks. Any questions so far on that? Yes?
Did RFA actually provide some of those services themselves that you just mentioned?
Which services are that?
Like the family support. I thought the RFA program actually does provide those services.
So they have the foster college that is provided by them, yeah, but we would just give them a resource of a computer where they can actually come in and take that if it's something like that, yeah.
If you have a youth that's in a long-term RFA and they're a younger teen and they successfully fulfill all their obligations to probation,
yeah.
How do you transition out of juvenile justice and maintain that RFA to be transferred to child welfare?
Yeah. So we haven't had a lot of those, but the ones that we have had, the one went into guardianship, or they'll be taken off of probation and then go into the extended foster care. So we've had those two situations. We are looking at, we've got a couple younger ones that hopefully won't be on probation for 2 years. But what we have found through this, because we're always trying to find different funding sources, that there are other funding sources out there, guardianship, and then so that they're not losing the funding but can keep the minor in their home. Because that's the other thing, right? If it's a long-term foster care situation, sometimes they can't just cut off the funding. They need the funding in order to support the child. And so we're trying to find other resources for that. And this is a learning curve for me, for sure. I keep asking questions. And we have an eligibility worker in our office, which has been very helpful, because I can go to him and say, I've got this situation. What can we do? The other thing is Social Security. We've got Social Security funding that we're also helping fill out those forms with, right? And if the child qualifies for Social Security, that money goes into a bank account for them. So when they actually are 18, they're gonna have a savings account. So there's lots of different funding that we're finding along the way. We just keep asking questions. Yeah.
So kind of on the lines of this question. So if you have a youth who's a 602, you're in that RFA home, they pretty much met all of their goals in the case plan for probation. So can they just transition into CFS's care, but under the same home to try to not disrupt that care?
I don't know.
I think that can absolutely happen. I don't think like she said, we haven't had very many youth that successfully completed probation to be able to do that, but I do think that is an option, transitioning and becoming a dependency as opposed to a 602, a dependent as opposed to a 602. Yes.
The reason why I say it is because we often have youths who were 300 wards become 602.
Sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right now, they're doing STRTP, but are pushing to go into RFA if we can avoid the STRTP route.
Right.
So we need to know, okay, what's that transition going to look like?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
To answer that, you can't send them back. If the RFA needs to be maintained for the funding, you can't send them back to 300.
Now, you said send them back. Can they go back can they go for the first time? Back?
You can go back for the first time as well.
Okay.
I've done reverse 241.1 where I've had a child in an RFA placement and they finished probation successfully and they returned them terminated probation status and implemented 300 status as experimental status.
Same home.
Sacramento County, same home. And the King Gap one that we just did, that has some requirements. The child was placed in there after the age of 16, was in the RFA relative home base for 6 months. Subsequently, actually it was a little over a year. There.
Yeah.
They obtained guardianship and went to King Gap with probation, everything terminated.
Yeah.
So he didn't, in his situation, he didn't have to go that route, but I have successfully done a reverse 241.1 where the courts agreed to return the child to 300.
Thank you.
I'm just going to add to that. We've done it as well in Contra Costa. One, I'm just going to say it really is going to be dependent upon the relationship that you have with your child welfare agency as to how easy that can be done and what your 241 process looks like. I've facilitated them for a long time in our county. But also what is also a little bit more uncommonly known, which we've done also, is that you can terminate a youth in your placement unit who's terminated successfully. If they're 17 years and 5 months, you can actually maintain them in your probation, agency as a non-minor dependent. So you can definitely transition them at 17 and 5 months, and they're actually a non-minor dependent, like under the 450 status, who's terminated successfully, which I think is a lesser used or probably known thing too. So sometimes it might be in your best interest if the kid's already 17 to kind of just push it to that point, and then because then you don't have to break the continuity.
Right.
I can't say the word. Continuity or the assignment or the agency, because that could all look really different and it might feel like starting over for that kid. That you don't have to.
Yeah. Thank you for all of that. All right, so we're going to go into case management. So in Sacramento, we do have a designated DPO for that. That's me. I have all of my cases are RFA. We value a low volume of cases. It's really just to keep this authentic, right? So authentic and individual, we need to be intentional for everything that I do for my kids. Neither the family nor the kids are all the same. They all have their own stuff going on, and so I have to be available. So for us, we keep 5 to 7 youth per DPO on the caseload. So that seems kind of low in some regards, right? I see snickers and laughs. But if anybody manage an RFA caseload? Yeah? Just RFA alone? Anybody has dual, both? Just okay, so there's some of those. I don't know, maybe it's just Sacramento. But we got some humdingers on my caseload, right? So there's a lot of work that goes into them. I have monthly meetings with the youth, with parents, and the RFA families. I have to support the courts with all of their paperwork, and oftentimes it's quite extensive. The reports that go to the courts can be lengthy, obviously. You guys probably all have that too. School support. For my kids, school is so hard. That's where a lot of their troubles come in. That's where a lot of the issues that I have for my kids. So I am constantly in contact with our administrations at our schools. I have the foster youth liaisons on speed dial, right? If there's, the one thing I will say, because I have a small caseload, I have a lot of time to spend with the kids because I have to build my own relationship with them, right? I need them to trust me so that they will come to me when they need help. I've had so many kids call me and say, this is happening at school, somebody's gonna jump me. Well, then I can kind of come in and say, don't get yourself in trouble, right? You're the one on probation, we need you to be safe, go to the office, and they can trust me that I'm gonna be there for them. I've got people coming onto the campuses, the foster youth liaisons are doing conflict resolutions with kids. I'm trying to be proactive because I don't want that kid to get in a fight at school and do something where maybe a parent is going to press charges, right? My job, and I tell them all this the first time that I meet them, I'm going to keep you out of YDF as long as I can, as long as you do what you need to do, right? I want you off probation, I want you off my caseload, and I want to keep you out of custody. It's all up to you, and I'm going to be super transparent with you. I need you to be super transparent with me. I tell it like it is to all of them. I never sugarcoat it. I tell them this is going to be a process. But together, we're going to do it. You're not alone in this. You've got a lot of team members around you. I will be here and I will work just as hard as you. I used to say I won't work harder than you, but then I went to a conference and that dispelled that. So now I am. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not going to drag them across the finish line, but I'm going to be there going, come on, we can do this, right? And they need that. They need somebody in their corner. I am their biggest advocate. And so there's just a lot of time. ILP support. This is a big one. I didn't realize how big it was until just recently. So if they're eligible, I will recommend them to Sacramento. They have a county ILP service worker who then refers them to the school district. That's how Sacramento does it. I was included on ILP support Zoom meetings, which I didn't even know they had. And so once I was realizing what this was, through one of these Zoom meetings, I found out about Sac State Academy. Sac State Academy is at Sac State University. It's academy for foster youth that will support them through high school with tutoring, with a phone, with a computer. They go onto Sac State campus once a month. They take classes on campus. 3 weeks out of the summer, there's intensive, all-inclusive. 3 weeks, you live on campus, you're in the dorm rooms, you're going to college classes, 24/7 adult supervision. And I was like, why aren't we putting all of our kids in this? Well, there are some restrictions after talking to them. There are certain charges, of course, that they won't take. But I have a kid who's a 4.0 student who is in an RFA family who they are very college driven. And I thought, this is exactly what he needs. So through this process, we were able to get him into this academy, and he is so excited. He's making life changes so that he can continue in this academy, because part of it, Sac State is a no smoking campus. My kid likes to smoke. And so he's really trying so hard to change his behavior so that he can be successful. He wants to go to college. And once they go through this academy in high school, the academy follows him through high school. So they have their own setup through college through college, where they will now support him to get him a graduating degree in college. So it's an amazing opportunity. So if you have the opportunity to do these ILP support meetings, hopefully your counties have them, it takes time. It's an hour out of the month, but I'm learning so many things about these opportunities for kids in foster care. RAP services, we're all familiar with that. That takes some time navigating, right, and making sure that the services are provided to your children so that they have what they need. I'm the one saying, you know, why didn't the therapist show up, or why didn't the skills worker show up today? Because RFA parents are going, I haven't had services in 3 weeks, and I'm like, whoa, let's get this taken care of, right? So we're trying to make sure that that's all happening. And then CFT meetings for my kids often happen more than once a month. I know probation is just twice a year, but I'm literally almost twice a week or twice a month for almost everybody on my caseload, because these cases are pretty intense. And then crisis management. I have to be available. I have to be available to put out fires. I have to be available to make sure that the RFA family is staying intact. I need to make sure that we can retain that placement. If I get a call from an RFA family and they're like, I don't think I could do this anymore, he's not listening, he's not going to school, he's smoking when he's not supposed to be, you know, there's COVID, right? So I have one kid who was sharing a vape at school. Well, she was the caretaker for her grandparents. So she was like, absolutely not. I can't have him here. Well, I don't have anywhere else for him to go. I need this to work, right? So we had emergency CFT meetings. We're making sure this kid has enough support that he understands the ramifications if this doesn't work for him. And so crisis management is probably one of the top things for me, is just being available to put out those fires. I mean, I've been here less than a day and a half, and I've had 1 email and 3 phone calls already on one of my kids from school because he's having difficulties. So just understanding it takes time. And so just having this designated DPO in this case, or in this position, it really does help to retain those placements. Because that one that she was like, I can't do it, he's still in the home, they're doing better. He's the one actually going to Sac State Academy. So if that had blown out, he wouldn't have the opportunity to go to college through this program. And so I'm super grateful, because that happened before I even knew about the academy. And so because I was able to retain the placement, that allowed him to have a totally different outcome in his story. And then collaboration. So I do a lot of collaborating and concurrent, yeah.
For the crisis management, do you guys offer, or are you able to have the capacity to offer after hours support, weekend support?
So we do FERS, so we have the handouts that we can give out for that purpose. Typically, I can work later, obviously, and do those kinds of things if I need to. But on weekends, we don't. Probation doesn't, but we give them lots of resources. We have the source also. So at the very beginning, I'm giving them as many resources as I can so that they have constant, you know, the child has some place to call, the parents have some place to call, so that they're never alone. And then RAP services are also, they've got hotlines. A lot of mine will have like hotlines that they can do 24/7. So collaboration and concurrent case planning with probation officers. So if I know somebody's coming to me, then I'm going to be right there with the other DPO. I'm going to be going to the STRTP or going to the school or meeting the parents. I will make sure that I know as much about the child as I possibly can and about the family. And then also, prior, like even when we have new RFA families, I'm going out to the home to visit to make sure that it's a safe environment for the child, and then making sure that they understand, like, I'm going to be the DPO when the child comes. This is what my expectations are. Just got to give them a brief overview of who I am. There's so much going on when the child gets placed, and so just having that face put to it helps. If the child's coming out of custody, I'm visiting the child in custody at YDF. I'm at the VC. I'm making sure that they know that who I am and what my expectations are when they come out. Again, just taking out one more reason to be anxious, right? Who's going to be my PO? Is she going to be a BE, right? So just making sure that they understand that these are the things that I am. This is how your case is going to be. This is what it looks like. And then I'm often wearing my social worker hat along with my probation hat, right? I need to help them to retain that placement by being supportive and just making sure that they have what they need. So I've said this, I'm very transparent, and initially I'll meet with the new family once the child's placed. I give them about a week or so to kind of get acclimated with each other, and then bring everybody, both adults or one, it depends, but not little kids, but the family in, so the child, the parents, and then we go over. This is the case. This is what their probation terms are. These are the expectations on you as an RFA family. These are the expectations of you as a probationer. Are we all in agreement? Does everybody understand? I'm not going to surprise them and take them into custody. I tell them, unless you do something egregious that I can't help you with, a new charge or something, and you get arrested, I will do everything in my power to let you know. If you continue to make these choices, this is where you're going to end up. Oh, I remember what I told you. You've got to get yourself together, right? Again, my kids are not the same. I have one child on my caseload who, if he was a typical probationer, he'd have been back at YDF probably 5 times over. But he's not. He doesn't have the capability to understand where he's going and what the choices are. He thinks something and he says it or does it. There's no filter at all. And I know that. His case managers know that on his RAP team. Everybody's aware that he's got some delayed emotional trauma, everything. Everything about this kid is just different. So I have to be available and different for him. I can't just take him into custody every time he violates, or else he'd be living in YDF. And we know that that's not the best place for him. So I'm super transparent with the family, with the children. And then I have to be fluid. I have to be changing. I don't do all of my cases the same. I don't hold them to the same bar. If I know that they're capable, then I know that they can do something. I'm going to hold them to that. But I definitely have to be fluid. And then one of the things that we realized after some time is that we wanted feedback. How was this working for our RFA families? And so what we were able to do is Pamela created a survey monkey. Super simple. We went through and thought, what are the things that we want to hear from our RFA families? So our survey, 1, was your experience partnering with Sacramento County Probation a positive one? And then they can give a synopsis. What is an example of something our agency did well while supporting the RFA parents during the placement? What's an example of something our agency did well while supporting the youth during placement? Are there any areas where our agency could improve in support for our RFA families or youth? Would you accept another placement of youth or another placement of a youth from Sacramento County? That's the retainment part, right? We need to know why or why not. Why won't you take another kid, or why would you? And some of them are going to be child specific, right? If they're a family member and they just want that child. But like we said, there's one that's child specific that has actually turned into somebody who would maybe take another one. So we want to know why or why not. And then would you recommend working with Sacramento County Probation Department as an RFA foster parent to friends or family? So we're able to take all of this information back and then implement changes. So we have to be able and willing to change to meet the needs of RFA families. So we can't just be stuck in the way that we're doing things and this is what we want to do and we don't want to do anything else. I have one of my RFAs that took the survey, we got back, and one of the things that I do is we have random drug testing. All of my kids have random drug testing orders. And so I just did it very randomly unless there was a reason to do it. And his feedback to us was that because he had to ask or because he suspected something and let us know, then we would do the drug test, that it became a barrier between their relationship. He was then having some issues at home because he tattled on him. Instead of that happening, we've decided that we're going to make them more random. We're just going to do more of them. Now, I don't send them all into the lab unless they're positive, but if they're negative, at least then that's one less thing that the RFA family has to think about. And so we've tried to implement that in, and that actually seems to be working a little bit better now. So with that, just being able to be there and doing something different. So think outside the box to find families, think outside the box to remove barriers and retain placement. So any questions? Yes?
So what's your field attire? Do you go out with partners?
Oh, great idea. Yeah. So we used to be social worky, right? So we wouldn't have our badge on, we wouldn't have our star shirts or anything like that. Since then, our county has changed where, because of officer safety, we go out with armed officers now. So I usually will bring them into the office for their monthlies, and then we have armed officers that will go into the community. So field attire for us is the star shirts now, just because of that. That was a little transition for ours. We had to give them some warning because now, instead of me just showing up with Pamela dressing like a social worker, we have tacked out guys or gals coming with us into the home. And that was a little bit like, whoa, and I had to just explain, you haven't done anything wrong. This is just everybody across the board in Sacramento County now has this. So it was a little bit of a transition, but now that that's been implemented and people are just kind of used to it now. Yeah, good question.
Personally aren't armed though,
No, there are some armed people in our unit, but I'm not. Yeah.
Would you be able to provide information for your IOP support and then also for the snack state academy? Because I don't know that we're implementing any of those types of things in our county, but I'd like to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have business cards, Pamela and I both do. If you wouldn't mind just grabbing a card and shooting me an email, and then that way I'll be able to remember to respond to that. Yeah, I would love that. Anybody else? All right.
I have a question that came up recently at our PAC meeting, and I don't know if you addressed it already, so forgive me if you did already. When do you share information about the youth background? That was one of the questions that came up.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll let you speak to that.
So how that works typically is when I identify a potential resource parent that obviously isn't child specific as well, but more whenever it's a resource parent from the community. What I'll generally do is initially I'll discuss the offense in kind of a vague way and kind of gauge how they feel about that. No names involved. This is the general offense. This is the kind of the history, what's going on. How does this set with you? And is this something you could proceed with? And sometimes they'll say, oh, no, that's too heavy for me. Okay, no problem. Move on to the next potential RFA placement. Whereas if they're like, no, I'm expecting some of that kind of stuff and I'm okay with that. And I've heard of some of that or I've dealt with it or whatever. Okay, great. And that was one of the homes, the youth that we just placed. This was something that I exactly did. I shared the initial offense and kind of what that looked like without any specifics or without any names. And he said, oh, I was a foster parent before and I kind of dealt with some of that stuff. Okay, great. So then we talk a little bit more, and once we get a little more specific, again, no names, and he's like, okay, yes, I'm willing to proceed with that. Then we submit it to, okay, here's what's going on, here's the specific case, here's the specific scenario, here's the background. How does this sound for you? Yes, I'm willing to proceed forward with that. Then we send the referral directly to them. Okay, now you need to read it. You need to go over it with your spouse. You need to fully understand this is what the situation is, and then we provide that to them. And then they get back to me and say, okay, we're ready to move forward. And I haven't had anyone at that point change their mind because we've really covered it by the time I'm providing documentation and a name. Does that answer the question?
Yep.
Awesome. Yes?
Just to follow up with what you said, this is doing that with vetted potential.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. Yeah. With someone that's already been vetted. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You're welcome.
So we just want to thank CPOC for inviting us. Thank you so much. Yes?
Well, I'm holding you guys up hostage right now because actually we're going to be breaking down, the divider's going to be moving, and then we're going to have wrap up at this time. So I do have another question so I can hold up time.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Just because we have like 4 minutes left.
Yeah.
Another question I have is in reference to, Pamela, you had shared with me some of the work that you guys do, and one of them was factoring in when they transition from an STRTP. Once again, connections is very important, so can you share some of that, what the work that you do in reference to that for the transition piece?
As they're transitioning out of an STRTP into an RFA. So kind of what some of that looks like is whenever the case plan goal is transition to an RFA and say they may have several months left in the STRTP, we're going to attempt at that point to identify someone either from their family finding results or a recruit within the community, and we're going to begin immediately to build that bridge. And do a phone call, do a Zoom, how'd that go, ask both sides, how'd that go, it went great, okay, we want another phone call. And so we slowly begin to lay the planks of a relationship and, engaging as it goes. And then as they get to the home pass portion of their program, then they'll do the home pass to the resource family. And by then the resource family has come to the STRTP and had a visit, and maybe they've done a day pass, but that relationship is built while they're still in the STRTP. Yeah. So, and we support the resource family with driving to the STRTP, gift cards for them to go to lunch on a day pass. So we're really working, I think, Dana, you covered that, some of that, is working on building that relationship. So the relationship is building along with the expectations are already outlined. And so it's not a transition into, a home that they don't know. They've been there, the relationship is building, and we're trying to foster that positive connection and that network building while they're still in the STRTP.
I think there's a question there.
Yes.
Do you guys go into the schools? Because I know that the school district, at least where I'm from, in Del Norte County, they offer McKinney-Vento services for foster and homeless youth that could provide some of the funding for other agencies because it does meet the criteria for them. And also, the same goes for our tenants because we run a truancy program out of Del Norte County that if it's meeting all of the aspects of like attendance, that they would fund certain aspects of your flyers, the bikes, and skateboards. That might be something to look into.
Thank you.
Yeah, what was it called?
McKinney-Vento.
McKinney-Vento. Thank you very much. Yeah, we appreciate that.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
And also, if you did that, as far as getting flyers out in the schools, then you would reach out to those teachers as well that are the lifelong connections for the kids as well.
Yes.
I know that we've had success with like at least 2 or 3 of the teachers that have kids at kindergarten that are now seeing them as teenagers that have become RFAs due to that.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that too. Thank you very much.
What county are you from?
Del Norte.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Fabulous. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you guys listening. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pamela and Dana, for joining us. And I was just so excited when we originally talked about this because they have such a passion in what they do. And I think that's really very important when you're connecting with the families or possible families, right? And even resource parents. So most definitely kudos to you guys for the work that you guys are doing. And hopefully, I think takeaway for me, like when I first had the discussion with them of presenting, is connections is so crucial, right? And I love the branding portion with your, you have what? Family, community, and support. And it's not like probation, right? Just jumping at your face, but really just connecting with the family portion. So, and just, how can I say it? That warmth and love, I think that's what I was sharing is putting that in people's minds. Because once again, they are, they're youth, and they're teenagers. And us, as a teenager, I know I've done some careless stuff myself, so we all do, and so just factoring in that they are humans and that they are, there's nothing different compared to child welfare versus probation. Yes, there are some youth that do have a little bit more challenges, but it's something that most definitely, if we are staying connected, hopefully that could work. So with that being said, hopefully you guys are able to, you got something out of it. Take it, and put it in your toolbox, take away with you, take it to your county. And once again, there's business cards and everything here, so you can grab some. I noticed there's a lot of candy bars.
Yeah.
So does that mean you can grab some too?
If you want chocolate, yep, absolutely. Grab a chocolate bar.